Hey everybody, welcome back to Mac and Mike. We're together again in person, and of course that's Mac and I'm Mike.
Live and in person.
Yes, it's not
Putting
Saturday
two of
night.
us together in one place, that's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah,
All by
it's a
itself.
safety hazard according to the federal government to have
Yes,
both of us in the
yes.
same
Safety
place.
manual.
Yep, OSHA's waiting. Anyhow, this week I guess we're going to start out instead of talking about many of the things that are currently in the news, like the hostage release in Gaza and the government shutdown.
And the peace deal.
Yeah, I mean, we may get to that if
Will
this.
our troops get paid on the 15th of the month or not?
Yeah, that's all coming in the future. But yeah, I discovered something that had totally missed my radar. It's been out for a couple months that Bill Gates was talking about a tattoo that will soon replace the smartphone. I thought at first, okay, this is a scam, and I had to look it up, and you looked it up, and sure enough, it's real. Now they're saying it'll be a while, maybe 4 or 5 more years. But of course, Mac and I are both Christians. So I think the first thing that dawned on he and I both were, it's the old mark of the beast. So, you know, throughout the 2,000 years since Christ came, there have been people saying this and that is the Antichrist or this and that is the mark of the beast. I mean, I am old enough to remember when they said the Social Security number was, that credit cards were, of course, then smartphones were, but this one. Oh, and back in 2016, 17 area, the Swedes and the Netherlands started using that
Embedded
RFD chip,
Yeah.
right, and they put it right in your hand.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is wave it, and you can get on mass transit, and you can pay for things.
Get a
So,
soda out of the machine.
yeah. Oh, I just heard something in the background. I realized the TV's on in the back bedroom. So, anyway, as long as it doesn't make too much noise, I guess we'll be okay.
I can barely hear it. Of course, you know I'm almost deaf.
Yeah, me too. Don't have my hearing aids in. So, anyway, it's a real thing, and I think the way it'll come about is going to be sneaky. It's like everything. I know people today that are still resistant to smartphones. And there'll be people that'll be resistant to this. It wasn't too many years ago I stopped carrying cash. Now you still carry cash on you.
And I told you why. It was an embarrassing situation at a restaurant one time when they couldn't take my credit card. And it was inconvenient as hell because they said, well, if you leave your driver's license here and drive to an ATM and get money out and come back, you can pay your bill and then we can give your license back. Well, driving without my license didn't seem like such a good idea either. So,
No.
yeah, I always carry some money with me.
So see that's one of the things that's scary. It'll be a gradual thing because at first I remember back in the 90s, one of my troops, Phil, he was the first one to tell me he didn't carry cash anymore. You don't have to worry about losing it. You don't have to worry about it getting stolen. And it was just at a time when not everywhere took the card as much as it does today, but
Right.
most places did. Well, eventually I came along to that point, and I imagine you and I may not live long enough to see this tattoo come into full play, but our kids, I'm going to be talking to my daughter and son-in-law about this and their children. Keep your eyes open. And like you said, it's a matter of convenience. So at first people will be encouraged, don't worry, it's just a matter of convenience. You don't have to have it. Nobody's mandating this. And
Right.
the Bible said you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade anything without it. Well, of course you can still use your ATM card, your smartphone, or cash to pay for things. But as those things, like we've been talking about, getting rid of the penny and other currencies because they cost to produce, which in the long run reduces the value. So if everything is tracked electronically, it's cheaper, right? And then there'll be the convenience of getting into your vehicle or getting into your house. You don't need a lock for your home anymore. You don't need to carry a bunch of keys. Just wave your hand. Oh, that's my house. And it lets you in. Turns on your television. Probably you wear the smart glasses and you'll be able to watch videos just talk to your hand like in Star Trek and say, show me, a video about monkeys jumping on the bed for your grandkids, whatever. And at some point, though, what I'm afraid, Mac, is there will come a time when governments will start to mandate it. Or even if they don't mandate it, it's just so inconvenient that if you don't have the quote tattoo or mark of the beast, whichever you want to believe it is, you'll be left in the dust, in the dirt, like a Neanderthal. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, my first question, Mike, was security. I don't know anything about these tattoos. I don't know how they transmit to open your door or to give you the can of soda out of the vending machine. I don't know what kind of technology that is, but any technology that can emit information in order to give you that convenience also can be that transmission form or that communications form can be used in the opposite direction. So the first question I have is how, once you have your entire life on that tattoo, how secure is it? And it's not only talking about convenience of being able to get in and out of your house, in and out of your car, give directions to your car, order and pay for food and all those other things. What about things that you don't want people to know? Like if you have a heart condition,
Yep.
your tattoo is going to know that heart condition.
Mm-hmm.
So your insurance company, instead of sending somebody out to get blood and do it, you apply for $1 million life insurance policy, all they do is they wave a wand over your tattoo and they know everything there is to know about everything there is in your body. Your heart rate, your pulse rate. Do you have any do you have any polyps in your just so many things that maybe you don't even want to know yourself, let alone give that information to somebody. And I can just see that they've made the HIPAA laws now, right? But
Yeah.
then what is HIPAA if somebody waves a receptor over your tattoo and they get all that information, quote, at your consent?
Yeah.
Whether you've given your consent or not, by the way. So security is the first part of it. The second part of it is that anything that is uniquely, wholly, and restricted to digital can be turned on and off. You know what I mean?
100%.
Many people don't remember, but on the island of Cyprus a few years ago, the government shut down the banking system. And they did so because the country was almost bankrupt. So whatever cash was in the ATM machines, people were allowed to get that out until it ran out, but it was not replenished. Your credit card didn't work. You couldn't go to the gas station to get gas and all these and your bank account was frozen. As a matter of fact, most people lost a certain percent. They just confiscated a certain percent of your.
I remember that.
And then they turned it back on after they were satisfied they had the problem solved. But, if you only have one means of taking care of yourself and your family, that being the tattoo that links everything that you have and everything you own to you, what happens if the government decides you're an enemy of the state? What happens if somebody, like they talk about home title lock, right? Like somebody can do some sort of special quick claim deed and steal your equity in your home.
Which you and I both know is a bunch of hooey. That doesn't really happen, but it's a good point.
The point I'm trying to make is that if they can somehow wave a receptor over your tattoo and replicate your tattoo's information into a duplicate in some way. And, I don't even understand the technology that would put that tattoo there with these nano receptors or whatever and be able to conduct all those transactions and gather all that information. But guaranteed if they can do that, somebody else can build the same kind of system that can steal everything that you have. And it seems to me that there needs to be some ultra level of security to be able to protect that, because no one wants to be literally excluded from society because of something you've said or done, or because in England right now, if you post the wrong thing on the internet, they can come arrest you.
And they have. They do it. You're right.
So, what escape is there if this information is boldly and proudly embedded on your skin and everyone can see it? I worry about that. I worry about that kind of information being concentrated into a single form so that you can either be what do they call that, identity theft? I guess it's the same thing as identity
Well,
theft.
identity theft is different. Yeah.
But not only stealing all your information, not only all your financial information, your banking information, and your health information, but also if that's the only way to interact with society as a whole, those people who have a desire to control society in a certain way may have an ability to stop your. Again, I'll go back to what happened in Toronto a couple of years ago. The truck drivers were protesting high taxes or high whatever they were protesting. I don't know.
There was a COVID thing.
Whatever it was they were protesting, the government got their information from their driver's their tags on their vehicle. They tracked them down. They shut off their bank accounts, turned off their credit cards, locked down their banks, restricted their driver's license. I mean, these people were basically non-entities because they were using what we would in the United States consider to be our right to exercise free speech. Now, I don't know whatever happened to all those stories of all those people that happened to, but to me, when you concentrate all that kind of life interaction into one mean method of exchange, there's a whole lot of risk there, both good and bad. And the convenience of being able to walk up to a candy machine or a vending machine and getting your Coke and your candy bar, without ever touching a wallet, without using PayPal, without using a smartphone, all of that stuff sounds really cool. But what are we trading for that convenience?
Yeah. So really, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it, except that, for anyone that might watch this, I remember Carl Priest is the guy that emailed me this. He's one of the guys I listen to from time to time. And it really caught my interest because, I am not one of these people who is, quick to grasp every time somebody says, oh, this is the Antichrist or this is the mark of the beast, this is a sign of the end times, because that's been going on for thousands of years. But this one kind of felt like it grabbed me by the back of the head and said, here you go, buddy, pay attention to this. So I think if anything, it's the closest thing. Because when I was young, you got to if you're young and you're watching this, Mac and I, we were born in the 50s.
We were young ones.
Yeah, we were young ones. But we could have never imagined the society that we're living in today in the 1960s.
No.
Just even the 70s.
No.
So,
if you remember the comic strip Dick Tracy,
yeah, the wristwatch
he had
radio.
what was called a wrist radio, right?
Wristwatch radio. Yep. I had one, a toy.
It looked like a wristwatch, but you could communicate through it, and it also had like a small TV screen on there.
You mean like the watches you and I wear?
Exactly like that. But in those days, we thought that was science fiction. Mm-hmm. We didn't think that was reality.
It's even more sophisticated than that.
Yeah. So
it monitors our heart, our respiration, all kinds of stuff.
When I talked to my brother about this, he asked me an interesting question because he uses the internet the way he wants to use it, which is he looks up these reels and these videos that various people post on various topics and subjects, and he says, well, how am I going to get the picture that I get now on my smartphone? And there's multiple different people that are working on this technology for the tattoo smartphone, whatever name we want to give it. And there was one source that I saw that was talking about showing videos on your skin in a translucent kind of way on your skin. And I thought that was just really, because one of my concerns is I've had some eye problems. And I said to Mike, I'm not sure that I would want to interact with any kind of technology that would access my eyes because I've already have diminished vision. And it scares the crap out of you. I don't want to be blind. I mean, I'd rather, not be able to speak than to not be able to see. because I'd figure out a way to get my message across, even if I had to learn sign language or have to write it down on a piece of paper. But not being able to see, to me, sounds like the worst sort of prison to be in. And I've already lost a lot of my hearing, so I've had the hearing loss, and I'm able to overcome that. Not being able to see, I don't know how I'd deal with that. It's not a pleasant thought. So,
No. Well, maybe we should move on to another subject. What do you
okay.
think?
What do we want to talk about? I'll
Well,
tell you what, I'm going to be super pissed if the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines don't get paid their regular paycheck on the 15th and the 30th of the month, or the 1st and the 15th, whatever the hell it is. I mean, I don't care what the people in Washington, D.C. do, but if you don't pay our military, somebody should pay for them not getting paid. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I think President Trump is trying to work that out, pulling money from various sources, because I guess there's some money that can be moved. Not sure how it would all work, but we went through this before. I think it was what, 2018 or something. The government was shut down for 35 days and the military didn't get paid. So, I mean, we come up with creative things. For those that live on base, they suspended any base housing payments. They had food drives, pantries opened. Credit was extended for car payments and utility bills and other things that you might have. And I remember, people that live off base, I'm sure they could work it out with a landlord or something. But then that puts a strain on the landlord because
Sure.
if you're renting, people think, oh, landlords, they got enough money to hold them over. Not always.
No.
My son-in-law just stopped renting his house because he's tired of all the little nitpicks that are costing him left and right. So he's selling the house and getting out of the rental business. And, because a lot of people that rent places, it's like living month to month. They don't get paid, then, they can't pay the mortgage on the place. And then they have to contact their bank, and it's a ripple effect.
Right. Well, I saw a couple of things. One, John Kennedy, who is a senator from Louisiana. And he has a very folksy way of putting these things usually.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said was, he said that that the senator from New York, who is head of the minority in the Senate, has a very difficult problem. He said that, on one hand, he has AOC, who wants to run against and primary him for Senate in New York. On the other hand, he's got Bernie Sanders, which is the hard left wing of the Democratic Party. And he said the minority leader has a problem that he can't appear to be weak because AOC and Bernie Sanders will excoriate him for allowing himself to be, quote, outmaneuvered or out. So he's got a real problem. And he said what he will probably do to extricate himself from this problem is he will continue to hold the hard line, to not do any kind of new budget. But privately, he will go to half a dozen senators and say, hey, look,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to vote against this because I can't give ammunition to my enemies in the Democratic Party to defeat me in many and various ways,
Right.
either as minority leader or as senator from New York. He said, on the other hand, what I'm asking you to do is to quietly, simply, and unobtrusively as possible pass over to the other side and vote for the new deal, so that I won't be part of it, and we know we have to get it done that way. So, if Senator Schumer wants to play that kind of subterfuge to keep himself out of the fray and let other senators take the attacks from the hard left side, maybe that's the way he gets it done. But there's I heard this very interesting quote from Representative Mike Johnson, who happens to be Speaker of the House. And he went on this thing of, I don't care what we have to do, but let's not take this internal political argument out on the government workers and the public at large. Let's just get a clean bill. And when they said, that's not me saying it, that's President Barack Obama saying that, the last time we had a crisis like this.
Yep.
So I don't know what the future holds. I'll just say two things about this. One, I don't want the massive amount of additional government spending that the Democrats in the Senate are holding out for in order to keep this bill from passing. The other thing that I don't want is that I don't want anybody messing with the lives and the livelihood of those men and women who are wearing the uniform, who protect this great nation at great cost to themselves and their families, not getting paid. And to his credit, by the way, I'll say Senator McCormick of Pennsylvania has introduced legislation that says if the military doesn't get paid, neither does he. I don't know that the Senate will pass that, but I think that's an incentive to get those people to get their act together.
No, you know, Congressman Dan Muser, he's a friend of mine. He posted up that he's not taking any pay. You know, he sent a letter to the people that do the payment. I forget what their office is called. Now, in all honesty, Dan's not going to suffer if he doesn't
And
get
Dan
paid.
can afford not getting a paycheck.
Yeah,
And that's the truth. I know Dan as well. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I really like him, and he's doing good work. But him foregoing his paycheck is not going to hurt his lifestyle in any way, shape, or form.
Right. But it's at least a symbol, you know, of solidarity with
Symbolic,
everyone.
yep.
And yeah, I don't really have much more to add to that either. I think you pretty much summed it up, Mac.
Well, I think the great tragedy here is that using our national responsibility to pay our way in all the many and various ways the government conducts business, by holding that up for political gain, to me seems like it's almost like a bank holdup, isn't it? I mean, they stick a gun in the window and say, give me your money. Well, isn't that really what a small group of members of Congress are doing by saying, I'm not going to pass this budget unless you give me this money, this money, and this money for my pet projects?
Yeah, and even this isn't about the budget yet. This is about just a continuing resolution to give them more time to work the details out with the budget.
Good point. I used imprecise language, but my point is, it's still like sticking a gun in the window and saying, "Give me money," right?
It is.
It is. All right.
Yep, holding hostage. So
So talking about hostage,
Yeah.
you want to talk about hostages?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, we just had this huge peace deal cut in no small measure, maybe smart too,
Yeah.
but no small measure to President Trump and his allies and several other very influential and very wealthy nations in the region that is bringing an end to the Israel and Hamas war. An exchange of hostages has occurred. Of the 100 and some hostages that were unaccounted for, there were 20 living hostages. Interesting to me, they were all men, but it doesn't matter, I guess, their sex. I think that, men are better able to deal with the deprivation and the hardships that go along with being a prisoner, maybe than women are. But also, as you noted, many of the early efforts to exchange prisoners were based on women and children to get them, as needing to get out of that hostage situation earlier. So there are a lot of heartwarming stories about the hostages being exchanged, but that's not the part that interests me. The part that interests me is how, where, and why they move forward with peace in what we call Gaza, which is really just a strip of dirt between Israel and it's not the Mediterranean, is it the Black?
No, it's the Mediterranean and Egypt.
So
Egypt is to the south.
the point is that, as has been suggested and proposed, is now that literally everything in the Gaza Strip, formerly the Palestine territory, has been destroyed. I mean, over the past couple of years and more recently the past several months, with the intensity of the fighting, just about everything's been destroyed.
Yeah.
So there's talk, I don't know where it'll go, but of economic and redevelopment of that land, and maybe even come up with a really highly revitalized economic boom to occur in that area. You know, maybe some resorts, maybe some hotels, maybe some other things that support a lot of jobs. You know, people that are well off, that have a good job and you know, a nice family life, they're less likely to strap bombs to themselves and blow themselves up in a terrorist act, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like Beirut in Lebanon. It used to be, what they call it, the Riviera of the Middle East. And it was beautiful. And of course, the problems arose there with Hezbollah and others. So we just got to hope that, what did they release? A couple thousand Hamas terrorist prisoners in exchange for these guys. You got to hope that between Indonesia, who is sending in some troops to oversee this, and
Maybe as many as 20,000.
yeah, and
That's a big number of troops.
it is, and Indonesia is actually, it's a Muslim nation. People forget that, and it's actually, it's Muslim in a way that the Middle East is not. And in all honesty, what I've read about Indonesia is they're a very giving country too, and that's amazing because they don't have a lot. It's not like a super wealthy nation like us, but by percentage, it does give a lot away. So anyway, hopefully with them and the Egyptians and
A lot of Middle Eastern states are interested in helping
Yeah.
to fund, instead of the United States bearing the brunt of the cost of redevelopment or rebuilding, they're talking about a Middle East redevelopment authority of some kind.
then they're
with
invested in it.
contributions from a number of different countries.
Yeah.
Here's one statistic that literally floored me the other day, because as this Israeli Palestinian war has been going on for a long period of time, and Hamas killing a lot of Jews, and the Israeli Defense Forces killing a lot of members of Hamas, and other collateral damage as they tried to get to the Hamas terrorists. We're talking about a nation of Israel with 10 million people. And we're talking about Palestine, the Gaza Strip, the place between Israel and the Mediterranean,
2 million.
as being 2 million people. So all of this activity, all of this focus, all of this war making, all of this terrible, terrible loss of life and people in such suffering, we're talking about a total number of 12 million people. That's like the city in New York. I mean, seriously, we're talking about 330 million people in the United States. 12 million is like, I don't want to say it's insignificant, but it's a really small number in comparison to what many nations of the world are. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you've never been to that part of the world, you don't understand what it's like. You just don't understand. I get a kick out of people saying, well, there's a lot of sand there. Yes, there is. But when I say the word sand,
Yeah.
you and I both know every American thinks it's the sand that's
Like
at
a
Virginia
beach.
or,
Yeah.
Ocean City or something like that. They're thinking beach in those terms. No, 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 no. This sand is like more like talcum powder than it is like grainy sand. And, you can't live there without getting this sand. You wonder why they wear the clothes they wear. Well, I was there wearing a uniform, and I want to tell you, at the end of the day, I had that sand in my nostrils, I had that sand in my ears, I had that sand in the corners of my eyes, I had that sand in every crack and crevice of my body, even though those cracks and crevices were covered by my pants. Your arm, you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. It invades everything. So at the end of the day, you feel, I can't describe the feeling. It's indescribable. If you've not experienced it, no words that I can use would explain. That's why I understand why there's less value on life in that part of the world,
Yeah.
because their life is so harsh. We think about life being hard here because somebody only has one TV and only has over-the-air channels, not streaming services. Over there, they struggle to feed themselves every day. It's a different world.
Yeah, I often said you work from sun up to sundown just to live. And of course, those are usually third country nationals in
Right.
places like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. But it's a lot of the world. Pakistan, India, China. These people work 12 hours a day just to be able to live. And they don't have time for politics and, distractions. As a matter of fact, somebody was showing me something on Facebook. They had this picture, and I was trying to get at where it was, but it was an ancient ruin with some beautiful carvings. And the guy said, I walked on the walls of this place and the intricate detail. It's thousands of years old. And I said, yeah, it's amazing what you can get done when you don't have television and smartphones and you don't have to go to school every day and go to college. You can just learn a trade and just do that one thing your whole life. You get pretty darn good at it.
It's funny. A friend of mine was embarking on a European vacation. He told me the various places he was visiting, and he mentioned Rome. And I said, I've been to Rome. I said, I visited Rome. I really enjoyed the Vatican City. I said, there lots of Rome, so much history. I said, what's funny is that in Europe, using Rome as an example, they talk about history in thousands of years. 2,000 years ago, this was here. In America, we talk about history as being 250 years ago, right? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
completely different concept of what history is. And it's funny. I also, my son and I were talking, and I was trying to explain to him what it's like in the Middle East. And I said, Sean, a couple of years ago, maybe it wasn't a couple of years ago, many months ago, Donald Trump got into a little bit of a kerfuffle because he called places around the world shithole countries.
Yes.
And, I reminded him that when we went on vacation in Turks and Caicos, and we were on this all-inclusive beach vacation with booze everywhere and 19
Food.
restaurants that we could choose from every day. And we rented a car and drove around the island, and
Poverty.
most of that island is just raw poverty. People living in blue tarps stretched over not shipping containers, but shipping pallets. The four-way shipping pallets. You use the machine to lift it up and to move it. That they were sleeping on pallets with blue tarps pulled over top of them, using other pallets as being the walls. And that's poverty. You
Yeah.
know. And you know what? I think that qualifies as a shithole country description.
Pretty much.
And there's lots of places around the world. You've been
Even
to
here in
them,
America.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been to them through the military as well.
You get off a couple blocks back off of Waikiki Beach in Hawaii, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Shanties.
Yep.
And
So the point is that not everyone enjoys the same kinds of life that Americans typically enjoy, and maybe if they can get Gaza built into that kind of environment, maybe that has a impact on many other places in the Middle East, because there are possibilities of doing some creative things. And to their credit, many people in the Middle East, with some of the buildings and some of the showcases that they've developed, they have done those kinds of things. But the average American doesn't understand what I'm talking about when I say I've been to some of those shithole countries and I understand what they're talking about. And that, Americans can't appreciate that. And that's, I believe, what Donald Trump wants to bring to Palestine, to the Gaza Strip, which, again, Donald Trump is so creative and inventive. Do you remember when he was talking to the head of North Korea?
yeah.
And he said, with a little bit of economic development, a little bit redevelopment, he said, you too could have all of this luxurious kinds of things that the rest of the world had. And that's what got Kim Jong-il attention. Not doing business with the West necessarily, not threatening each other with nuclear missiles, but the idea that many places in North Korea could be the same kind of luxurious environment that Donald Trump was talking about in all these other areas. And a long time ago, Mike, I learned there's only two great motivators in life. And this is true whether you're in the military, you're in civilian life, or wherever you're at, even in family. You can either motivate people by fear, do this or I'm going to beat you up, or do this or we're going to bomb you, or don't do this, and if you don't do that, then we will give you... No, we won't send our troops. All those are punitive in nature, so what you're doing is you're incenting people by use of fear.
Right.
Incenting people by use of fear only works for so long.
Right.
The better way to motivate people is to motivate them by desire. You know, if you want a new helicopter, if you want to have a brand new government building with international visitors from all over the world spending money making you rich, then you need to do this. And we can help you do that if you stop doing this, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what he's talking about with this. Right now, it's a pile of rubble. For the most part,
Right.
it's a pile of rocks. So
Right.
let's take this, which is kind of what we did after World War II, right?
Yeah.
Rebuilding most of Europe.
Yep.
But why don't we take this pile of rocks, push the rocks aside, and build some very, very nice, attractive places where people want to come? Not only resorts, but also the kind of businesses that attract high quality investment and maybe high quality exports, you know? It can be done if there's a will to do it.
Right. That's the genius of Donald Trump. I mean, you think about the Ukraine-Russian war, not to get too sidetracked, but stop and think the amount of blood and treasure that Vladimir Putin has put into this war. He could have bought for 1,000 years the rights to the waterways just by sheer money alone with what they've spent.
There's estimates up to 750,000 Ukrainians dead or injured, and maybe over 1 million Russians. And that's a lot of people that have their lives completely ruined.
That's right. And then the injured, and then add the money on top of it. Again, it's almost, I think, okay, they said it was about Russians speaking people living in Ukrainian territory. And that's an excuse. You know, Vladimir Putin wanted access to that area of water. He could have bought it, just bought it for 1,000 years. But see, that's what I'm going at is that's Donald Trump, and Donald Trump understands that you can either waste your money in war, or you could use the same amount and get better results, and nobody has to die.
You know, if Donald Trump is not nominated for and win a Nobel Peace Prize for this peace in the Middle East between Israel and Palestinians, Hamas. And by the way, many very prominent Democrats from all over the United States are saying he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. If he does not get that Nobel Peace Prize for this effort, I think that really reflects poorly, not on Donald Trump, not on the other nations who have been part of this peace process, but rather the Nobel organization itself.
Yeah, I'm already cynical about that organization.
Because no one really thought that this war would come to a peace agreement in this type, in this fashion, with this speed. I mean, the kind of war we're talking about has been going on for thousands of years, not hundreds of years, not decades, for literally thousands of years.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yep.
What do you think, Mike? What else should we talk about?
Well, I don't know. We're almost at the 40-minute mark. Maybe we should just wrap this thing up.
Let's wrap it up. We don't want to go too past 40 minutes. People won't watch.
People don't watch anyway.
That's only because they don't want to look at you, Mike. They
I
like looking. I'm telling you, they like looking at me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mac and Mike.
Out.
Out.